My name is George Robotham. I'm on the board of Outhouse and I have served with various capacities with the organisation for years.
George, could you just give us an overview of what Outhouse is?
It's a community and resource centre and cultural centre, we would say, in many ways, for the lesbian, gay, transgender and bisexual community.
And why and when was it founded? How did it come about?
The first meetings were held in 1994 and it was formally founded in 1996. Public meetings were held over that 2-year period to sort out what kind of a centre people wanted, and there were large attendances at meetings, public meetings, which actually led into how the company would be formed. It was important that it be a community resource and not some kind of a private facility, and that no one could ever make money out of it from their involvement other than obviously employees. But the reason for its foundation was that there hadn't been a community centre for more than 10 years. And it was really needed as a place for people to meet and commune, basically. And for both individuals to get information, support, and for groups to meet and help grow their activities. It's probably difficult to believe in 2015, but back then it was very difficult to get a meeting space. Hotels, I know personally, I can vouch for this, that hotels would refuse bookings when they know it was a lesbian or gay group. And occasionally you make a booking with a person on the staff who was quite accepting, but then you'd later get a call and a cancellation from a manager saying, no, we won't take you. The other point of view is when we actually went to try and rent a building in 3 years after 1997, we found great difficulty in getting estate agents to even take us as clients. And some landlords we approached said no, we'd be too worried about what other tenants in the building would feel about lesbians and gays coming in and out of the building. Which is kind of difficult, less than 20 years ago, to imagine that would be the case.
And since the setup, was there initial resistance at first?
Well, our resistance in that sense, yes. I mean, we eventually found a place with another lesbian gay group, and it worked as we were the actual people taking out the tenancy, and then the other groups used the space. And there was a great mushrooming, as we imagined there would be. There was a great mushrooming of groups following that, once people had a space where they could meet up and make arrangements. So it has continued to grow all of the time in terms of the number of users who access the place every year. We've over 35,000 a year who now access this building. We have regularly 50 to 60 meetings per month and up to 70 groups that arrange those meetings.
And is it important to try and give a sense of not just support but celebration about the community?
Oh, absolutely. That's a major part of it. We hold a number of different events. First of all, a lot of groups do their own activities, but we ourselves put on different events. We developed the basement as a theatre and performance space, as well as meeting space. With that in mind, and we do a huge variety of activities that is in that vein of celebration and people just having a good. And particularly, it's important because there are no other places other than public houses or clubs. So unlike other communities which might have a great variety of venues like different clubhouses and that where they meet, or churches where people actually meet regularly, etc. The lesbian, gay, transgender community don't have that. So it is important to have a space where people meet regularly, where the groups interact as well, and where they can easily get their posts and arrange a meeting with no big hassle, no big trouble in booking or anything like that.
Some of the groups that you do deal with, like your peer support groups, could you talk about some of them, like the Gold or the transgender support group?
Yes. Our main thing is to facilitate other groups. So over the years, Belong To started up from here. We were one of the organisations that were involved in the formation of Belong To. And we continue to support Belong To and to be very much partners with them in things we do. And they still use this facility. We actually, on a Sunday, keep the space free for young people. So it's only Belong To use during the day on a Sunday. And that's important that we do that. It was important to facilitate the transgender community. We were the first organisation to actually include transgender. From the very beginning, we included transgender in our target audience and participants. And we've had transgender people on staff and volunteers. And we're very much instrumental in supporting we started the Transgender Peer Support Group, which then led later to the formation of TENI, which we supported over a number of years in different ways. And we continue to do so. And now, happily, the transgender community is achieving much more prominence in the last couple of years, and we're very happy that so many other people are also supporting them. And there's still a lot to be done.
And you do a lot of that, like information, referral, support, things like that. And could you just give a little bit of a history about your outreach and your training, things like that?
Yes, people might wonder why we need to do information and support. Particularly when gay and lesbian trans stuff is so much in the media. You would imagine that everything is okay now. I think that's one of the biggest difficulties we as a community face going forward. This belief that everything is sorted, you have equality, sure, why would you need a centre, why do you need any supports? But the reality is that the effects of the discrimination that has taken place over most of our lives doesn't go away because we suddenly can get married or we have recognition as transgender people, which is still limited. It will be generations basically. It doesn't happen. And although it is brilliant, and one of the great positives for us is to see young people coming in now who don't have difficulties coming out, who can come out as young teenagers to their family. But there's still another side to that. There's still a large number who can't do that or encounter great difficulties. So that's why we need to have supports, why we need to have anti-bullying legislation, which belonged to very much, was involved in schools. And yes, people, like any community, people need a place to meet anyway and to get information and support. There aren't other places for our community to get information and support. That's the prime thing.
And there's problems with trying to keep something like a space like this going. Like how do you keep it with funding or fundraising?
Yes, it's a mix of course. We get state funding. We have 2 core supports. And we generate income ourselves from small rentals from the different groups, from having a cafe, which serves a function of both creating some income, but also a space where people can hang out. And particularly for someone coming into the building for the first time, it's very much easier to come in and have a coffee and sit down and kind of find your way in before you even talk to anyone. You can just sit there and read some materials that are around. So that's a really important part of the place. But every little bit helps us. Formal fundraising is difficult. We do collections and we do some small fundraising. But over the last few years, that's been very difficult in the economic climate that has existed. It is something that we do now, are addressing in terms of our plans going forward, because with state agencies, it's really important that we show that we're providing funds for ourselves as a community. And it is something that we have to get across to members of our own community, because people tend to say, well, don't you get state supports? A lot of people imagine that we just get a grant and that's it, you don't need to do anything. So I think it is, for all communities, it's going to be a major part of their funding. They have to show that they're actually making some efforts themselves to both fundraise and to create money from their activities.
And what would you hope Outhouse can achieve going forward?
Well, our key plan is to have a purpose-built centre. This was always seen as a short term. We bought this building when we had an opportunity we had to move, and basically we decided rentals were so dear. We boldly went to the bank and went to our funders and said, listen, if you can give us this and you can give us that, can we marry the two? And we managed. It was probably one of the first for a community type event or organisation to actually get a mortgage, for instance, for a building. But it was very important for security because of that history that I outlined about the difficulty in getting a place to rent even. And then when you get a place to rent, what can you do in that space? So that was extremely important. But we didn't only see it as a short term. Unfortunately, the economic crisis has intervened for the past few years, and we hadn't been able to push forward that idea of getting a purpose-built space. But it is something that we're now addressing again, and we think we need a purpose-built centre that is large and caters for all elements of our community. Because people tend to forget, they have stereotyped images. They see, in the marriage campaign, the visibility was greatly increased, but it was people who were able to speak in the media, and they are seen as happy, and we're probably seen as more middle class. It's something that we would be conscious of here, that we'd have a great variety of people who use this building, and they weren't all represented in that campaign. Also older people. That marriage equality campaign was a very difficult time for older people, but we did experience that here. They have lived under the radar for a great number, most of their lives, and suddenly the spotlight was being shone on them. That suddenly people started thinking, oh, I wonder, are you gay or are you lesbian? And that was discomforting for a lot of them. And also they felt that when the proposal went through, that life had passed them by. They weren't going to be able to avail of marriage. So it threw up a lot of issues for people, and even for people who are very happy and may get married, it threw up issues of acceptance and the negative side of the campaign that was really upsetting for a lot of people. And that sort of thing doesn't go away quickly. It threw up difficulties with family members. Like, I know lots and lots of people who were afraid to ask some members of their immediate family how they had voted, because they didn't want to know if they had voted no. And I think that's something that is often forgotten, that there is another side of this. There is still a large section of the population that does not believe that we are LGBT citizens are equal.
How would you recommend people use outhouse as a first point of call?
Well, I think it depends on where they're at, I suppose. For someone who has never come into a gay venue, I would say pick up the phone, make a call. They can call any of the helplines, or they can speak to some of the staff here during the day and get reassurance and get directions, and they can be met at the door if they want, or just outside the building. We can, make it easy. Or they can just walk into the cafe, sit down, make themselves comfortable, and see how it goes from there. We often find that people may walk up and down, even in this year of 2015, walk up and down the street several times on different days before they will actually have the courage to come in. And then maybe after a while talk to someone in the place. And the other thing that's really heartening is that people actually travel from all around the country. It's like people as old, older, younger. We get 14, 15-year-olds coming in just to see what it's like as a space, and we get people in their 70s and 80s coming. I mean, one of the most poignant stories ever was an 80-year-old man 2 years ago who was brought here by one of the workers in the hospice, and it was just something he had never had any contact with, lesbian and gay spaces, and it was something he wanted to do, and that was extremely moving for staff and for our volunteers, but particularly for that man. And he came into the older men's group, which is Gold, which is a group for our older men that meets here. He came in here a number of times. So that was very heartening. That shows the range of people that we get.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
That's brilliant. Thank
Right.
you.